Hi everybody, this is Matthew Poes with Poes Acoustics, and I'm answering questions. So, let's see. Cody Kellogg, 9634, said, "Hi Matthew, thank you so much for sharing such valuable knowledge with the community. I recently was working on my dad's home theater and had a question. It's a dedicated room with a Vanderstein 5.1 setup that was built about 18 years ago. We recently upgraded to a 4K projector, and in doing so also had to update the AVR from an older Denon to an Onkyo RZ50. It was needed because it supports the 4K HDMI. After getting everything set up and calibrated with Dirac, everything sounded great. However, I noticed that the timbre was a bit brighter than before. Is this due to switching amps from Denon to Onkyo, using Dirac versus whatever older version of calibration the Denon had before, or is it something else? Also, can this be adjusted with target curves in Dirac, or would it take some more extensive calibration? Thank you again for all your great content." All right, Cody, so first off, the actual answer to your question I can't give you because I don't have enough information. I would basically need to have measurements from before, measurements from after, and then I could look at it and see. But assuming that the only change was the receiver from a sound standpoint, and the system got fully recalibrated, there are any number of things that could have happened. But the most obvious one that I would suggest probably is yes, Dirac. So probably Dirac is basically setting the system to some sort of standard target curve. Now, Vanderstein speakers, I understand a lot of people like them, but they've never been known for being the most neutral, accurate speakers. And if you look at the measurements, Stereophile has measured these for years, you'll see that they probably would not yield a what I would call Harman typical expected response. I say Harman, but it was just an idea. So when we say Harman typical, when I say it, what I'm really referring to is this idea of 1 dB per octave increasing from 20 kilohertz to 20 hertz. So if you take a speaker that has fairly typical dispersion with a perfect, perfect directivity, so like the directivity match between drivers is perfect, it's perfect directivity, and it has a dead flat on-axis response, and you stick it in a typical small room, you're going to see a response that kind of does this, from 20 kilohertz up to 20 hertz. At about 1 dB per octave. So it's going to be about 10 to 11 dB higher at 20 hertz than it is at 20 kilohertz or so, in that realm. And if you look at most speakers, what you see is, because the directivity is not perfect, what you tend to see is a rise, a flattening, and a rise again. But something kind of like that, right? When speakers veer from that, when they don't have great directivity matching, and when they don't have a dead flat response, you're going to see a different sort of response shape. And so Dirac is going to attempt to force the speaker to conform to a more ideal room target, whether it should or not. Now, what you should do as a person doing a calibration is actually undo that. You should actually apply a correction to it that is a closer fit to the natural response of the speaker. That way it's generally correcting for problems in the room, some problems with the speaker, but it's not forcing it to conform to something it wasn't intended to. Having said that, if the speaker is very colored, there's no reason why you can't make the speaker less colored using the target curve. So you may not want to completely follow the natural response shape of the speaker because the natural response shape of the speaker may be itself flawed. Not trying to pick on the speaker, but I'm just saying this is a speaker that is known to not have a perfect response. And so it's one where it's, like I said, Dirac is probably trying to force it to conform to something that it doesn't naturally conform to, for better or for worse. Now, if the feeling is that it's too bright and you don't like the way it sounds, I would take some measurements with REW, but if all you're really trying to do is focus on getting back to where it was and you don't really care about the measurements, your other question, can you fix it with the target curve, is absolutely. You don't need to do a lot more than that. What you would do is simply adjust the target curve to have less high frequency energy. Take out 1 or 2 dB at a time, rerun everything, pass it in. Now, you may be, I'm not sure how you're doing this correction. What I'll say is if you're using like the phone app, or you're like doing it through the menu on the receiver itself, it's going to give you very, very little control over this. Use the PC software. As far as I know, there's no extra cost for doing that, but the PC software is going to be much better. I also would recommend possibly not using the microphone that comes with the Onkyo and buying a mini DSP UMIC 1 microphone. For the relative modest cost, if you don't already have one of these, it's worth it because it'll give you a more accurate high frequency response in the correction, and you can use it for things like REW measurements. So hopefully you find this helpful. I hope that answers your question, and for everybody else who's in the same kind of situation, you know, hopefully this was useful information for you as well. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and pass it on to friends, and hopefully we'll get more people viewing this stuff. It's good information, right? I like to think so. So thanks everybody. Keep watching, I got more coming.